Today, we're going to talk about the fear of redemption. And we'll start with a quote from chapter 13, The Guiltless World, section 3, The Fear of Redemption. You may wonder why it is so crucial that you look upon your hatred and realize its full extent. You may also think that it would be easy enough for the Holy Spirit to show it to you and to dispel it without the need for you to raise it to awareness yourself. Yet there is one more obstacle you have interposed between yourself and the atonement. We have said that no one will countenance fear if he recognizes it. Yet in your disordered state of mind, you are not afraid of fear. You do not like it, but it is not your desire to attack that really frightens you. You are not seriously disturbed by your hostility. You keep it hidden because you are more afraid of what it covers. You could look even upon the ego's darkest cornerstone without fear if you did not believe that without the ego, you would find within yourself something you fear even more. You are not really afraid of crucifixion. Your real terror is of redemption. So that's counterintuitive. We think we want peace. We think we want the love of God. We think we want to awaken from the dream. But he's telling us we don't want that. Thus, it's possible to study the course and be a diligent student, understand it 100% intellectually, practice exactly what it seems to tell us to do, and still find ourselves caught up in our egos and angry and afraid. So that's the phenomena that every course student experiences. So he's telling us right then why we need to realize the full extent of our own hatred. It is the thing that we want to gloss over. It is the reason why we point fingers at other people. We don't really want to believe what he tells us, that we believe we're the home of evil, darkness, and sin, that we believe we are things of madness and despair. We believe we're bodies. We believe our decisions are important. What we do in this world is important and meaningful. So we're not done. There might be a tendency to think, well, when am I done looking at that? We're not done. We're not done until we're home. Well, we are home, but we're not done until we experience ourselves as home and invulnerable. I really don't know anybody who would claim that. So maybe there's some instances of light, but overall, we still have the need to look and do what he tells us to do, as long as we believe we're living in a world. So he talks at one point about how the ego doesn't love. And my teacher had a great anecdote about this. Someone raised their hand in class and said, well, what about a little old lady who bakes cookies? Isn't that loving and kind? And he said, not if there's a hook in it. And of course, there's always a hook in it. Of course, if the cookies were thrown in the garbage, or someone said they don't taste good, or someone said, I hate you, that, worldly love that gives rise to baking cookies can easily change to hate. And it's explicitly stated in the course, no ego has experienced love without ambivalence. And that's what we consider to be normal in the world, that love would shift and change based on what the love object is doing in return. There's also a saying that goes, when I say I love you, what I really mean is, do you love me? So the egos dictate to get, to seek without finding, is preserved in the love relationships that the world offers. But the ego is just a belief about yourself. So while we have joined with the ego thought system, and now for all intents and purposes, we are an ego, it is still just a belief about ourselves. The ego, in chapter 4, Illusions of the Ego, he says the ego is a device for maintaining the belief you are separate. So our using it enables that device to endure. It seems that we're compelled beyond a reason to use the ego as a device, because our belief in separation is our core self-concept. The idea of ourselves is that we are separate individual beings. And I believe in that section or close to it, he also says, how do you teach someone the value of something he deliberately threw away? You can only show him how miserable he is without it, slowly bringing it nearer so he can learn how his misery lessens as it approaches. So the primary point of that is we deliberately threw away heaven. We deliberately threw away God and love. So the idea that we're going to welcome the ideas in the Course in Miracles is crazy, because we can't welcome it. We're not welcoming what we deliberately threw away, in which we continue to throw away every second of every minute of every hour of every day. That is what we need to be looking at. You know, we're watching this dream, this script play out with just the choice of choosing Jesus as our guide, or our ego as our guide. We take the hand of our ego, or we take the hand of Jesus. We know what we chose because we know how we feel. And that's the part where it's very difficult to be dishonest with yourself, because if you're angry and fearful, you chose the ego. And I'd think most of the time, the experience of practicing the Course, in practicing taking Jesus by the hand, is to watch ourselves be fearful in physical pain, mental pain, psychological pain, spiritual pain, existential pain. We're watching ourselves within the script act out something in form while experiencing the opposite of love. We chose against love, and now we're going to experience the opposite. And that is hatred, or a version of hatred. So we're oneness in heaven. We turn our back on it. And now it's only the opposite. That is all it can be. There are illusions of variation. There are illusions of sizes and shapes and colors and differences. And just as there are illusions of variations of hatred. Sometimes it does seem like the guns are stilled an instant. There is a qualified entente. There is a truce. And we mistake that for peace. But its temporary nature really makes it impossible to deceive ourselves for very long. That, you know, we've found any type of lasting peace. But people don't even strive for lasting peace in the world. It's a contradiction, because we know what the world offers us. We're just trying to thread our timid way through it, manipulating it as best we can, navigating as best we can, even though in truth we're doing none of that. When Jesus tells us to look at what's happening here in the Garden of Agony and Death, he is not glossing over any of it, but also he's burying the lead, in the sense that he's telling us to look. He's telling us to withhold judgment. He's saying we need do nothing. And within those words, implied in the whole of the text, is the truth is there is nothing we can do but look. It is the only game in town. It's all we've ever done. We look, then deceive ourselves we are the thing we're looking at. We never could do anything because the script is written. We believe we're doers. We believe we're decision makers in the world, and I'm choosing to go left or right. That is an illusion. Once you identify with a dream figure, a puppet, then it seems to be you who is thinking, saying, and doing, even though you are not the thing you're identifying with. You are the one watching that thing. That's all you have ever done. You never did do anything. You never did do anything but look. Our contribution, our participation is using the ego as a device to maintain the belief in separation. And that is it. And that belief is maintained in the mind, not in the world. Nothing happens in the world of form. It is a shadow cast upon the walls of the mind. We identify with a shadow. And as long as we never take our eyes off that shadow and never look beyond it and never question that shadow, we're going to remain stuck. We can watch the shadow all we want, watch ourselves judging and with wild abandon and wallowing in the self-pity and morose nature of the ego thought system, that selfish, opportunistic, me, ego mind that we believe we are, the thing of madness and despair. But if we're going to move up the ladder, we have to look beyond the shadow. We have to look within. The body's eyes don't even see. You would think that's all we would need to hear to stop relying on them as to gather the evidence of what is true. We have sightless holes for eyes. And Christ can lend us his while we seem to walk in the world of darkness, where the light has been barred. So going back to the primary point, which is, you may wonder why it's so crucial that you look upon your hatred and realize its full extent. The frenzied madness of that hatred can't be just experienced at one moment in time. It pops up. It pops up in the world. You can stub your toe or you can witness evil, and that hatred will pop up in you. So something in the world seems to antagonize me. One body seems to act upon another body. There's an event or a circumstance that isn't fair, doesn't seem fair. And so whenever anger pops up in you, that is the revelation of the anger and hatred that was always there from the moment of identification as a separated self. It has nothing at all to do with the shadow on the wall. The shadow on the wall is meaningless, is not a cause. It is an effect of a choice. So I think this is some version of a plea to move beyond the dancing shadows and into the understanding that frenzied hatred preceded the shadow on the wall and gave rise to it as a place to hide and seek guilt for that hatred outside of us, rather than saying, I chose this. I made a deliberate choice. How do you show someone the value of something he deliberately threw away, save through sight of all of his misery? If we deny that misery, if we water down that misery, if we call it something else, if we, focus on the passages that I am the light of the world and love is real, we're going to lose sight of our own misery, which is the only motivation he has identified in the Course to wake up. That is how we self-sabotage. We ignore what he is telling us is happening right now. In this moment, it's here. Salvation is here, and the misery is here. They're in the same place within our mind. It's not some future moment in time. It is every moment we seem to experience in time. And we will be shoving that moment off, and time will become the barrier instead of the tiny gap, unless we acknowledge that anger and hatred's inside of us. And we are not done until we're home. And the witnesses come to prove we never slept. And we will see there was no moment in time the Son of God did not make a deliberate choice. That is his power. And it's also his power to get himself home. So the blessing, the prayer, the hope I have for all of us is that we take Jesus' hand and let him guide us back up that ladder, the ladder into our minds where we make another choice. And the world of madness disappears from the nothingness from which it came. Thank you.